Hi, I'm KS Garner, and you're listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with one of the creators behind the comic series Mashbone and Grifty, Rolando Esquivel, here to promote issue 1, launching soon on Scout Comics. Welcome, Rolando.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and thank you for joining us here today. But outside my introduction, who is Rolando Esquivel in his own words?
Rolando Esquivel, he is a border kid. He was born in Brownsville, Texas. Lifelong fan of storytelling, lifelong fan of wrestling. That's really what got me into the whole storytelling idea, and then also comic books. And he's just a lover of life, lover of laughing, and yeah, just a family guy. I come from a huge family, so there's a lot of characters in that family, and a lot of those folks, definitely influence the work that I do. But yeah, in a nutshell, Rolando's just someone that loves to laugh, loves his family, loves his friends, and wants to, hopefully make the world laugh along with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Mashbone and Grifty, from what I read, is definitely funny. It's definitely I really liked it.
Thank you.
But what is Mashbone and Grifty, the series, actually about?
Mashbone and Grifty, it's about two inept pop culture junkies that decide to save their South Texas border town. And the way that they're going to save it is they're going to start a freelance detective agency out of their favorite bar. So not only are they completely inept and unqualified, but they also, like they're bruised a little too much. And they just kind of stumble and bumble their way around cases, starting with this first one. At its core, it's really about the relationship between the two characters, their friendship, and the relationship that they have with their community and everybody around them. Friends are a big influence in my life. So in everything that I do, that is at the core of that. It's family as friends, and then also friends as family. But yeah, it's an action comedy. It's super slapsticky. It's going to be one of the funnest, dumbest, most sincere comics that you're going to read. And what I mean by sincere, it's very very true to the culture that we have here in South Texas, namely Brownsville, and it's kind of a love letter to where we're from. The folks that are here, the type of humor that we like, that we enjoy, a lot of wordplay, double entendre, stuff like that, and just a lot of like really inappropriate humor too. I really like kind of crude kind of stuff, but yeah, that's kind of what Mashbone and Grifty is all about. It's about the laughter, it's about the relationship between these two guys and the world around them.
Uh-huh. I remember reading it, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it or knows what Mashbone and Grifty is, but the person that comes in their first case, what he comes to their first case about, and it's like, oh, that's what he's talking about. Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay. And
the call to action, as someone had said on another podcast, that it's he says something like it's the most interesting or most unique call to action that he's seen in comics. But yeah, and as I was explaining to that person too, that's kind of perfectly encapsulates what we do with this book. The statement, for, again, no spoilers to those listening, but the statement this guy makes, it is rather crude when taken just one way, but once you start going through the book, as you go through the book, you start seeing that it's you start seeing the context of what it's all about. You quickly do see what it's all about. But yeah, we like to do that a lot of like the wordplay stuff. Like for me personally, that came a lot from my dad. He was always, walking about the house saying like the weirdest stuff. I didn't get it when I was a kid at first, but as I started getting older, I was like, man, this guy's hilarious, and it's, corny dad humor, that he had, but that's where the spirit of that it was alive and well in the books. Oscar's father too, super funny guy, always making people laugh. So we get a lot of that influence from our dads, and yeah, a lot of that wordplay and kind of, the inappropriate stuff that, that requires a little context later on. That's kind of where that comes from.
Uh-huh. Well, could you elaborate a little bit more on the creative process on Mashbone and Grifty as a whole, from, I guess, just a thought in you and Oscar's head to working on it as a whole, as a complete work, to now promoting it on Scout Comics? Well, coming up on Scout Comics.
Yeah, sure. So the original idea with Mashbone, well, like, first to start with the characters, the two main characters, they came out of Oscar's brain. He had done a little sketch like back in '99, we're in high school, of a little a caveman guy that eventually evolved into being Mashbone. Grifty was a drawing of a guy that was asleep on his couch in front of a TV at night, and that evolved into eventually becoming Grifty. Once we had these characters, we at first we didn't really know what to do with them, and we were kind of going back and forth between comic and animated series, but we stuck with animated series because the necessity to do something with them was Oscar's coming out of the Art Institute. We actually used the characters to make a short film, a short animated film that he used for his final project at Art Institute. And that's where the idea of like, hey, maybe we can make this an animated series. Like that's where that came from. So we started developing a lot of treatments for episodes and started developing a bunch of characters and stuff. So we were in development, on and off for years. And as far as like the jokes, the actual content, it's just like years and years worth of really dumb jokes that we tell each other just to make each other laugh. That's kind of been our MO, is just make each other laugh, right? And so we started collecting these things. We started writing them down, notebooks, and then eventually, in our cell phones and stuff, and the note apps. But the show started with the idea of doing an animated series. We started developing an animated shorts after that initial one that Oscar did for Art Institute. And it was just taking a little too long to develop that one. So we went back to our first love, which was comics, and we decided to turn those treatments, just kind of mess with them a little bit and turn them into treatments for the comic books. And that's where that process started to turning into a comic. This is now 2013. So about 10 years ago is when we started on the comic in earnest. Now, as far as the process goes, like I said, at the beginning, it's just a collection of dumb jokes that we said, we need to find a cool way to put this together. And we found Mashbone and Grifty were absolutely the best vehicle for that. A lot of the jokes, a lot of the stuff that we wrote down was just things that happened like in our hometown, things that happened to us while we were in high school or in college. And as we lived in the same cities, we lived in Brownsville together when we were going to high school. When we went to college, we both went to college in Houston, and then we both lived in Austin for a bit. So every place we had our little adventures, right? So we're taking notes for all the the dumb things that happen or dumb things that we did. And yeah, so that became kind of the basis for a lot of these episodes. And we also worked together for a little bit when we got out of college. And we did work in Houston, and then we drive down to Corpus every couple of weeks. So we had, a solid 3 to 4 hours where it was just us in the road, and we would just riff. We would just go back and forth. And while I was driving our work truck down to Corpus, Oscar would just write a bunch of notes. And that's where a large chunk of like the beginnings of what became the treatments for Mashbone and Grifty came from. It was just those long rides. So that's how it started. And honestly, it kind of still is like that. Whenever we're going back and forth, like on script, I'll start writing the script and we'll kind of ping pong ideas and jokes back and forth. So it's still very much like those first days when we're in the work truck, except now we have, the advent of the internet and stuff. And so we're sending each other chats about, what works, what may not work and stuff like that. So it's highly collaborative. Just the same as I send him pieces of the script, he'll send me his sketches and stuff, and then I'll share my ideas on it, and most of the time it's like, cool, badass, let's keep going with that, and we'll kind of help each other along the way with each other's tasks. But yeah, the whole book, the whole series is super collaborative. There's really not anything that both of us don't touch on that. Obviously I don't do like the artwork, but I do, I let him know, what panels we might need to change up, or, change perspective, or if something's just not working, that kind of thing. And just the same, he does that with me with the jokes, dialogue, and whatnot.
Has there been a storyline that either of you wanted, but the other person didn't? And like, how did that work? And did you ended up like, how did it work where, he wanted something, but you feel like it didn't work, and he like fought you on it, and did you guys end up actually putting it in there, or, putting it in a later issue, or just scrapping it?
I can't remember specifically what it's been, but we have had several instances like that. And it's usually with me, like presenting like a joke or a gag or something. And a lot of it was early on. And it kind of helped me to become better at writing. I would send him something and he didn't get it. He didn't get what the punchline was. And he'd send it back, just tell me that he didn't understand it. And then I'd be like, well, it's because this, this explains this and this explains that. It's like, yeah, but the audience doesn't know that, so I'd go back to the drawing board, and have to fix that up. And there has been another thing where I fought for something. I think it was in our fourth issue in the last, we did 3 48-page issues and then one 60-page issue before we signed with Scout and Chispa. And I think it was on that 60-page one that I fought back on something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, it was just a matter of talking it out and seeing each other's perspective. There's never been one where we were just kind of like very like harumphy, like just like really standing our ground, like to the point of like, like getting into an argument. And it's just come through, years and years of just dealing with each other, really learning how to deal with each other. But we always listen to each other. We always hear each other out. There's really no ego when it comes to this story. The characters truly have taken on a life of their own. As we've gone through the years and, done different projects, like I was saying, an animated thing, and then we started working on the comics. I also did a weekly comic strip for about 2 years while we were working on the first two stories of Mashbone and Grifty. So there's a lot of different things that we've done with these characters to kind of develop them. And now that we know them pretty well, we kind of know what's best for them. So when we have those moments that, no, I don't think he'd say this, I think he'd say this instead, then it comes from a place of deep understanding, again, just because we've been working with these characters for so long.
Yeah. So how did the collaboration with Scout Comics and Chispa as well come about? Like I understand from, I believe what Oscar told me is that you guys started selling them out your car initially. So how did it go from that to this?
Yeah, so we were like I said, we started doing the comic in earnest in 2013. At first we released it digitally. We were digitally releasing, pieces of it, a couple pages like every week. I forget what the website is, but on Webtoon, we were releasing it on that site. And so in 2018, we decided to finally start printing and start doing conventions. The first convention that we did was Latino Comics Expo, which they actually went out of California for the first time and came here to Brownsville, to our hometown. So we had our book that's a love letter to Brownsville, that's about Brownsville, and we got to sell it for the first time in Brownsville at a Latino-centric convention, Latino Comics Expo. So from there, we just kind of kept going. We started building relationships with the folks in our community, in our indie comics community. Fast forward a year later, in 2019, we went to Texas Latino Comic Con, which is run by Hector Rodriguez, who has his comic El Peso Hero. I had met him there for the first time, and we got along great with him. We talked shop. We went to an after party and stuff with a lot of the creators. We got on our soapbox about an idea that we had, to bring Latino comics creators together and kind of help each other out. We didn't know that him and David were already working on the idea that would eventually become Chispa Comics, which is just that, kind of a Latino-centric indie label. And so fast forward to 2021, we've done conventions. During the pandemic, we did online stuff. Just being, a good part of the community, just being positive and stuff out there, having good work as well, kept us in Hector's mind. So when it came time for the Chispa project to come about, because he liked our work, because him and David felt that it was pretty unique and all, and it spoke to what the mission was for Chispa, something diverse, something from Latino creators that you don't really see out there. Because we kind of checked all the boxes. They're like, hey, would you guys want to pitch for this project for Chispa? We said sure. We did the pitch, and Scott was on board, and so now we're here about to release our first issue, go nationwide in June.
Mm-hmm. So I guess outside of working with Chispa, I guess before you started collaborating with them, how well did comics perform and attract readership within the Hispanic Spanish-speaking community? Did you really see any interest within this community before, or is there any measurable interest outside of it as well for a Latin centric type of?
Honestly, I think to this day, it's the Latino comics still kind of struggle to find a market. Even though there's so many Latinos in the U.S., I've stated before to someone that assimilation is a mofo, for lack of a better term, in our community. So whenever you put something out that's created by a Latino creator, and when you put that, a Latinx or Latino Chicano creator, some folks may automatically think like, oh, that's too brown for me, and so that's why it's been kind of difficult to market Latino creator driven comics, and even within our own community sometimes. Now, whether there's interest in comics just in general, yeah, absolutely. There's interest in comics. I mean, Marvel and DC, are some of the biggest properties, as far as like pop culture stuff among Latinos. Everybody loves Batman, loves Superman. My sisters, love Wonder Woman and Superman, and Marvel. I mean, once the MCU started to take shape, I mean that just hit with everybody, because a big market, of course, is kids, and so Latinos are known to have huge families, mine included. So you get the whole family involved in that, and the whole family's gonna have some interest in comics. Now, do I think that there is a bigger, I guess, customer base right now for comics as compared to before? I don't really see that so much. And the reason that I say that is I actually work at a comic shop here in Brownsville, the Comic Cave, and manga is just taking off. So if we're talking about just like, sequential art, then yeah, it's getting bigger. But if you're dividing it between comic books and just manga, like manga's kind of it's definitely overtaken that. And so that's a big driver for us, for our book. Mashbone and Grifty, it's made by us. It's made it's about our community here. You have it's just like our community here. It's like 95% Latino, Chicano, Mexican American. Our book is the same way. It's very representative of where we're from. But a big purpose of our book, of creating this book, is also to show that, like this, we're not a monolith. Latinos are not a monolith. Chicanos are not a monolith. Here in our own community, you have folks that, just like me and Oscar, you have some folks that have their feet firmly planted on both sides of the border, here in the U.S. and then in Mexico. So we're products of pop culture from both sides, traditions from both sides. And all that. Then you have some folks that aren't really like that. Like they don't really the Mexican heritage in their family isn't really that strong. So they're more similar to the American culture. And again, that's here in the same city, in this border town of Brownsville. So Mashbone and Grifty is very representative of that. Like our main characters, Mashbone and Grifty, they're not spouting out Spanish throughout the comic. If they do, it's usually like slang or some kind of slang term that they're repeating. And the idea behind that is that happens a lot in our community. You hear your parents, grandparents, your tios, your tias saying all these different phrases, and you kind of you blend that in with speaking English. And some people call that pocho, which is when you speak both languages at the same time, and that for a long time it had been a derogatory term. It still kind of is, just like calling Hispanic kids or Latino kids that don't really speak Spanish, they call them no sabo kids, because they don't really know how to speak Spanish. It's also kind of derogatory, but it's just the reality of our culture here. So Mashbone and Grifty, its main purpose is for representation. That is to be representative of our culture, of our community. But again, it's I think it'll be kind of eye-opening to folks that read it to see just what that means. Because again, we have feet firmly planted on both sides of American and Mexican pop culture, and we decided to represent that in the book.
Mm-hmm. So, outside of working on Mashbone and Grifty, how well do you find balance for your life? Like, I know you mentioned how you and Oscar had worked together at one point, and in order to keep up with the story, Oscar will be writing everything down on his phone in the note app. Him going off to school, you going off to do your thing. Guys working. Trying to like just even live your own lives as well. Maintain relationships with people, friendships, intimate relationships with partners. Who knows? Your family. Keeping up with bills, pets, whatnot, whatever. Like, how do you find balance with all of, trying to juggle everything? And how do you typically manage your mental well-being when you become too like stressed, frustrated, or overwhelmed?
So as far as the balance with these characters, like I said, we did these when we're in college. We're old. We're actually we're in our early 40s right now. So we've been working with these characters for the better part of 20 years. So during that time, like it's kind of become like we have no choice but to have these just be ingrained in our lives. These characters in this book. We always talk about it. Like honestly, I don't think I've said this to anyone else, but Oscar's probably the only person that I talk to or that I have talked to like every day of my life for the past, like, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. And, you talk about relationships and stuff, and like that includes, some girlfriends and stuff too. Maybe there's a couple of days where I go without talking, or not without talking to a girlfriend, but I'm still talking to Oscar about the book, and that's, and the balance with life and the book. Well, for me, it's been pretty easy because I love it. We both love this book. It's legit or become our life's work. So anybody that knows us, anybody that spends time with us, anybody that's close to us knows that this book is super important to us, that we will do pretty much any and everything to support this book. Now, that doesn't mean that, I don't mean that literally, right? But, we're not in practice, we're not going to do that literally. But everybody knows it's super important to us. So, and it's hard to, it's really hard to get to know us without us, spouting off, going on some rant about the book at some point, whether it's dating or what have you, spending time with family, we're always going to talk about it. So as far as like a work-life balance, it's always there. When I worked I did my supervillain arc in corporate America, and we'll go back to that. And I either had a spiral notebook and a pen in my pocket. So this is when I was like a security guard and selling furniture and stuff, where I had a smartphone. And then once I started working like an office job and stuff, then it would be the Notes app. If I had access to a computer where I could open up a notepad and then put a thumb drive in there and be able to take my notes without getting reprimanded or anything, without being a security rep to the company, then I would do that too. And also talking throughout the day, chatting during lunch break. Hey, I was thinking about this stupid joke from Mashbone and Grifty, and kind of going off on that. So it's always on our brain. So because of that, because we love it so much, it becomes kind of easy to just balance that. Now, as far as kind of taking breaks from it, we have hit those moments where we just kind of hit a wall, and we do start to kind of feel like we're getting burned out. But we've both been really good at recognizing that when it comes to this book, to this story, and saying, you know what, I'm going to take a break from it for a little bit, because I don't want to like hate doing this. I want to love doing this, and we tell each other that too, back and forth. Here recently, I hope he doesn't mind saying it, but here recently, Oscar confided in me that he was getting a little tired and stuff, like physically tired, like drawing and stuff like that all the time for the book. And I was like, well, just don't do it, don't do it for a bit, and yeah, so we have to kind of tell ourselves and each other that every now and again, because we're so dedicated to it. But we do really good to keep each other in check. We check in with each other and with ourselves, especially in the last 30 years. 2019, from 2019 forward, has been kind of a struggle for both me and Oscar, personally, our personal lives. We both had life-altering things that happened. I was dealing with mental health and physical health issues, going into the pandemic and stuff. So really for a whole year, from spring 2020 to spring 2021, we were really leaning ourselves heavily while still trying to work on the book and everything. But we really started talking more about our mental health. It's not anything that ever escaped us. It's not anything that we ever like avoided, but it just became apparent that, we need to do this. We need to talk about this a little more. And now we've been talking about it more and more. And again, that's what helps to keep us from just being sick and tired of doing this thing, because we were at a point, actually, and this is another thing I don't think that we've revealed to anyone, but before the Chispa thing came around, because of where we were at with everything, there came a point where we were going to tell each other without the other guy knowing, hey, I'm kind of done with this. Here's everything that I have for it. You continue on, and we just kept going though. We talked to each other and we were like, nope, like we've been working on this way too hard. We put way too much of our blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. We're gonna ride it out. We're gonna take Mashbone and Grifty as far as it'll take us, But yeah, checking in with each other has been has become a very, very important part of the creative process on this, because it's to create our own book. We're not working for anyone but ourselves. This endeavor, the contract that we have with Chispa and Scout, it is we still have rights to everything. It's a profit split. So again, we're not necessarily working for anybody but ourselves with this book. So yeah, it's because of the fact that it became such an ingrained part in our lives. Like again, because of that, we had no choice but to get to where we're at right now, with checking in with each other. But yeah, that's incredibly important to do.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like working for yourself, being self-employed, or pursuing a lifelong passion, to everyone else on the outside, it sounds like a dream, but then there's so much pressure that you have to put on yourself to get it done, or, whatever team you have to get it done. And it becomes like your life almost, in a way. And, I can't tell you how many times I've been looking at full-time jobs, because you never know when the money is coming in again from, the part-time jobs you've done or whatever it is that you're selling. But then, I think about, how dreadful it would be if I went back into the office, having to sit at a desk at a cubicle and not having a window or anything like that, and then I just go back into the work. Maybe I might take a break, a couple of days off, maybe a week off, maybe a month off from it, and just focus on something else, get some fresh air, talk with some people, hang out, maybe trying to get some human contact outside of, my bubble, just maybe just a little bit more of a touch of reality elsewhere, and then go back into it. But yeah, it's crazy how, you one day you don't want to do it anymore, you kind of want to give up, but then you tell yourself, no, you have to keep going, you have to remember why you started to begin with. And then like it's crazy, it can be like within a couple of hours you get an email, you get a phone call like, hey, we're starting this new thing that was exactly what you wanted to do, are you interested in it? And it's crazy, because if you had gave up, that probably would never happen. Maybe it was already in the works, like Cheeseburger Art was already in the works, but that was unbeknownst to you. So you're thinking, oh my God, this divine intervention. Like, no, it was kind of already in the works, but it's like the universe or God or what have you needed you to keep going in order to even be a part of that.
Yeah, and yeah, because that's exactly what happened with us. It was that I don't remember if it was an email or a text from Hector, but it was that was like, oh, like we have this opportunity now. Like, dang, like I'm glad I never said that stuff to Oscar to tell him I was done, because deep down it's like you're never really done, but it was just it got frustrating to have put so much work into an indie comic that when people read it, they're like, man, this does not look like it's y'all's first thing that you've done, and just getting all these credit, these accolades from the folks at the conventions that do read it and that have interacted with us online, and then just kind of feeling like you're spinning your wheels, and me, like, I'm a super patient guy. I'm super, super patient, but it was just like, where's it at, man? Like, where's the proof that, that this work that we've done is worth more than just the fun that it's been for us, Mm-hmm. And so then them asking us to be part of Chispa, it felt like validation, because Chispa Comics is an imprint that's meant to highlight creatives and creators that wouldn't otherwise have a shot, and it hasn't been the easiest thing to do right now to get this comic on the shelves. I'm not gonna lie about that. Even though that's the purpose of Chispa, and we have this partnership with Scout, like there's still been a lot of hurdles that have been placed in our way. And as we try to cross all our T's and dot all our I's, like there's still stuff that is completely out of our control. And it's just, kind of growing pains in this new endeavor. But even with all that, it's like, cool, we're still doing this. Like it's still, we're still validating, like, man, like, even though it's taken us this long to get it on a nationwide, release, still, we know that we weren't only doing Mashbone and Grifty stuff for the past 20 years. We've had our lives, like I said, I've had careers, 3 times over, Oscar's, with his family and stuff like that. He's got a growing family and all that. So even while we were super busy with all that, we still found time to work on Mashbone and Grifty. I guess it kind of goes back to the question you had earlier, about that work-life balance is, we didn't just kind of go into our cave, into our hole, and just work on Mashbone and Grifty nonstop. Since we first started messing with the characters, we've had life happen between them, but again, that's what kind of goes into the validation. It's like, cool, like all that extra time that we spent while we were doing all those other things have led to this, and it was time well spent, obviously. So it feels really good to know that we have the capability to push forward whenever things get tough. And again, I'm not entirely convinced that if it was just me doing a solo thing, that I would still be doing this. It's been so helpful to have my childhood friend to be on this endeavor with me. It's like in the action movies, when the guys are surrounded, and everybody's shooting at them, and they're like back to back, with the last few bullets in the chamber or whatever. It's felt like that, and talk about like mental health and stuff, like it attacked us pretty bad. But man, we got through it, and you need your people. Thank you for bringing up earlier. You said about friends, being around folks and stuff like that. You need that. I needed that. I did isolate for a while when I first started going through my issues in 2020. I did isolate for a while, but as I started going out and interacting with people, and just kind of, poor friends of mine, man, they got an earful about my issues and stuff, but they let me talk. They let me get it all out there, and most of them didn't like correct me, didn't say like, you're stupid, like, are you crazy? There's one friend, one of our very best friends, Tony. He's kind of like been my spiritual guru since high school. He kind of kicked my butt a little bit and was like, "What are you even talking about? You get intrusive thoughts and stuff like that, down thoughts about yourself, and he's like, what are you even talking about? Like, look what you guys are doing. Look at what you've done so far. Not just in your interests, but in career, this and that, and all this stuff." So he kind of made me start seeing that I had value outside of just being a creator. So you need your people that are not in your same creative space to be there for you. And actually, before we started the call, I mentioned about having some car troubles. Buddy that I'm working on the car with right now, I go to him a lot, and I spill to him, and it doesn't matter what it is, it can be any little beef that I have with life in general. I'll go to him and I'll spill it, and that helps me because it helps clear my head with that. And now I can go back to being creative and having those happy thoughts, So you absolutely need someone. For anybody out there that's doing creative work, don't just put yourself in a cave, man. Go out there, have people. If you don't have people with around you, like, go to a library. Go to if you like to have a drink or two, go to a bar and just have a drink or two. Just try to be social. Just do that. But yeah, it's absolutely helped a lot to have someone there just to listen to. Because yeah, it can get really congested in your head when you're going through dark times. So yeah, that's helped a lot for the process for us.
Yeah, exactly. Or is there anything else that you want to touch on about Mashbone and Grifty that we've missed as a whole? Or any other upcoming projects that you want to discuss, or any conventions that either of you may be attending this year with Mashbone and Grifty?
Yeah, so conventions, that's to be continued. We have other, like Oscar has wrestling projects and stuff that he works on too. We also dabble in professional wrestling, so we'll be to be continued on that. But just check out our social media at Fight Meets everywhere on social, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. But as far as Mashbone and Grifty goes, anybody that's not familiar with the book, it's an action comedy. Like I said earlier, it's about 2 inept, friends that decide to open up a freelance detective agency. it has a lot of heart. There's a lot of heart that goes into the book. It's a lot of slapstick. The humor is very, very dumb, but it's for a reason. Everything that we do is for a reason. Even the dumbest things that are said, there's always callbacks to them and stuff like that. So for my money, this is probably going to be the most fun that you have reading a comic book. Right now, there's not a lot of people that do comic books, and big reason is because it's not easy. But again, we come from a culture that's, humor is ingrained in our blood. We make fun of each other, incessantly. And of course, we try not to be bullies in the book and stuff like that, but it helps to kind of form that humor. So again, as far as Mashbone and Grifty goes, it'll be probably the funniest book that you'll ever read. Available June 14th. Other projects that we got going on, Chispa has a forthcoming superhero universe, or Chispaverse. Chispas are going to be the name for superheroes or superpowered people in this series of books, and it's a series of books called The 13. It's about 13 folks that get their powers on their 18th birthday, and so it's everything that they have to do with that. Their powers are based on their Mesoamerican day signs. The one that I'm writing, it's the code name is Revive. The character name is Zoe Vidal, and she's someone that is immortal, so she cannot die, and she also has the power to revive anyone that's been dead for 24 hours or less, or for less than 24 hours. The character herself is someone who is kind of a hothead. She's really not the best decision maker in the world. She lets her emotions kind of get to her a little bit. So she's not necessarily the perfect person to decide, who should come back to life or not, But yeah, so that's a story that I'm developing for them. Again, they're going to be 13 separate heroes. So that's going to be coming soon this year. They also have other titles that are going to be coming out, like Katrina's Caravan. That's a horror anthology that'll be out. It may already be out right now. But yeah, just look out for more Chispa titles and more to come from Mashbone and Grifty. The hope is that we become a bi-monthly title. But we'll see about that here pretty soon. But yeah, we're going to be on the show starting June 14th. So make sure you get out there and buy like 10 copies so we can keep making these things.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank Rolando Esquivel, one of the creators behind the comic series Mashbone and Grifty, for joining us here today to promote issue 1, launching soon on Scout and Chispa Comics. All of Rolando's socials, like it's 5 Meets Comics, right? It's 5 Meets or yes. 5 Meets Comics?
At 5 Meets.
At 5
on
Meets.
TikTok, yeah. On TikTok.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, so pretty much on all the socials is 5 Meets, and the website, which I saw you guys had some merch on there too.
Yes, 5meetscomics.com.
Okay, yeah. So that will be listed in this episode details for those who are interested in reading more about Mashbone and Grifty for when it is up for sale through Scout Comics and Chispa Comics June 14th. Again, I'm KS Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Thank you.